Welcome back to the International Explainer, where we unpack the world's most complex conflicts. Today, we uncover why Israel and Iran are not just political rivals, but ideological enemies. From nuclear fears to proxy warfare, this is not just a conflict. It's a war for survival, identity, and influence. Hit subscribe to stay informed as we reveal the hidden forces behind the headlines. Why Israel and Iran are enemies, the real reasons behind the conflict. Israel versus Iran, a war of ideology and survival. Since 1979, Iran's opposition to Israel has not been simply political or military. It is ideological, almost theological. For Iran's leaders, the State of Israel represents a historical injustice, a vestige of Western colonialism, and an illegitimate entity occupying Palestinian land. This is why Iran does not recognize the existence of Israel, a position it is today the only state to officially maintain. As soon as he came to power, Ayatollah Khomeini enshrined the need to fight Israel in the regime's doctrine. This line has been maintained and even strengthened by his successor Ali Khamenei. The Supreme Guide regularly refers to Israel as a cancerous tumor and publicly calls for its dismantling. This radical rhetoric is not purely verbal. It is accompanied by concrete support for anti-Israeli armed groups throughout the region. On the other hand, Israel perceives this hostility as an existential threat. A country of 9 million inhabitants, surrounded by sometimes hostile states, cannot ignore calls for its destruction from a militarily powerful and technologically advanced country of 85 million inhabitants. Israel's security doctrine is therefore based on a fundamental principle: preventing the Iranian threat before it gets out of hand. In Tel Aviv's view, this is what justifies preemptive strikes against Iranian infrastructures or the bases of its allies. This ideological and security-based confrontation fuels a permanent climate of war, where each side feels justified in striking at the other in the name of its own survival. The nuclear threat. Why Israel fears an Iranian atomic bomb. One of the central issues in the conflict is Iran's nuclear program. Officially, Tehran claims that its activities are civil and peaceful, aimed at producing energy and medical isotopes. However, since the early 2000s, there has been considerable evidence, notably from Western and Israeli intelligence services, that Iran has sought to develop a nuclear military capability. Israel considers an atomic-armed Iran to be an absolute red line. Not only would it jeopardize its own security, but it could also trigger a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, pushing countries like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Turkey to follow suit. This is why Israel has been waging a secret war against Iran's nuclear program for over 20 years. This war takes several forms: cyber attacks, such as the 2010 attack on the Natanz site using the Stuxnet virus, developed by Israel with the help of the USA, according to several sources. Targeted assassinations, including that of scientist Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, presented as the father of Iran's military nuclear program, killed in 2020 in an operation attributed to Mossad. Plant sabotage, mysterious explosions, fires, and drone attacks on sensitive sites. In return, Iran resumed uranium enrichment at levels increasingly close to the military threshold. Despite the international agreement signed in 2015, JCPOA, which limited Iran's nuclear capabilities in exchange for the lifting of sanctions, tensions have never really disappeared. Since the withdrawal of the United States from this agreement in 2018 under Donald Trump, and the failure of attempts to revive it, the situation has become tense once again. Today, Iran would have sufficient quantities of enriched uranium to build a bomb in a few months if it decided to do so. It's a race against time for both sides. An Iranian nuclear bomb would radically alter the strategic balance in the region. And for Israel, letting that happen is out of the question. The proxy war. How Iran-Israel fight without direct combat. What makes the Israel-Iran conflict particularly complex is that it does not take the form of a conventional war. The two states have never faced each other directly on the battlefield. Yet they have been at war for years, through intermediary actors. This phenomenon is called a proxy conflict. Iran supports armed groups, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, or Shiite militias in Syria and Iraq. that attack Israel or its interests. In return, Israel retaliates with targeted strikes, mainly outside its territory. Here are a few recent examples. In Syria, Israel has carried out several hundred airstrikes since 2017 against weapons depots, convoys, or bases used by the Iranians or their allies. In Lebanon, tensions remain high with Hezbollah, which has an arsenal estimated at over 100,000 rockets aimed at Israel. In Gaza, salvos of rockets from Hamas or Islamic Jihad regularly trigger conflicts lasting several days with Israel, resulting in dozens or even hundreds of deaths. War is also being waged in cyberspace. The two countries are engaged in reciprocal cyber attacks. Israel has targeted Iranian electricity, oil, and nuclear infrastructures, while Iran is accused of attacking Israeli computer systems, hospitals, and banks. Finally, the war is also a narrative one. Each side is waging a media and disinformation battle on social networks, in the international media, and even via influence campaigns on the diasporas. The result is a fragmented, asymmetrical but constant war, a war without declaration, but with very real consequences. This is not just about territory or power, it's about two worldviews that see each other as threats to existence. But how did 2025 become the year this decades-long Cold War turned hot? In our next episode, we break down the recent escalations and why experts believe we may be on the edge of a full-scale war. Subscribe now to the International Explainer and stay ahead of the storm.